Most people think they understand Charlotte after a weekend here. That confidence usually gets replaced by, oh wow, this city is deeper than I thought. If you think Charlotte is just breweries, beige neighborhoods, and everyone arguing about where real Charlotte starts and ends, you're either brand new here or you've only scratched the surface. Charlotte makes you earn the good parts. The disconnect shows up fast. The neighborhoods people swear are the best are not always the ones people actually love living in once the boxes are unpacked. Most people show up convinced South End is the answer because that's what their feed showed them. I've watched people move here with full Pinterest boards and change their mind in a week. And I've watched others accidentally stumble into a spot they had never heard of and say, yeah, this is it. This list is not the internet version of Charlotte. It's the moment you realize the neighborhood you swore you wanted might not actually be the one you choose, and now that you see how people actually live here. And one of these neighborhoods almost always flips people's decision the moment they experience it in real life. Here's why this list even exists. This whole thing started in a car ride. I was riding around with someone who had just moved here, super confident, had their neighborhood picked before they even crossed state lines. About 10 days in, that confidence cracked. Not because Charlotte disappointed them, but because it surprised them. The place they were sure they wanted felt loud, rushed, kind of exhausting once real life showed up. Meanwhile, the neighborhood they barely looked at started feeling comfortable without trying. Somewhere between sitting in traffic on South Boulevard and knocking out errands without hopping back on 77, it clicked. Charlotte plays the long game. It doesn't impress you first, it grows on you fast. It shows up in your mornings, how easy your days feel, where you end up on a random Tuesday night. When people miss here, it's usually because they chase rankings instead of paying attention to their routines. And that's where this really starts, because there's one neighborhood almost everyone thinks they want first before they actually live in it. South End is usually the first answer, not because people researched it deeply, but because it feels obvious. Walkability, the rail, restaurants stacked on top of each other, patios that are somehow full on a Tuesday at 6:17 p.m. It looks like a highlight reel, and I get why people fall for it fast. I had a client move here from out of state who was locked in on South End before their boxes even showed up. Loved the energy, loved being able to walk everywhere, loved that there was always something happening. And for the first couple weeks, it felt electric. Then real life showed up. Groceries, work days, noise, parking. The same streets that felt exciting on Saturday started feeling loud by Wednesday. They didn't hate it, they just realized they were paying a premium for energy they weren't actually using every day. And that's the real story with South End. It's not overrated, it's intense. You're trading space and quiet for convenience and momentum. Your morning coffee is a walk, not a drive. Your social life happens without planning. Your car starts to feel optional, which in Charlotte is saying something. South End consistently posts some of the highest price per square foot numbers in the city, even though the homes are smaller, because buyers are paying to be near Camden Road, the Lynx Blue Line, and that whole South Boulevard spine. In most years, South End pricing runs roughly 20 to 30% higher per square foot than nearby non-rail neighborhoods, even when the broader market cools. The data backs this up too. Transit adjacent amenity dense pockets like this tend to rebound faster and hold demand even when rates jump, because time and access matter more than extra square footage. But here's the part that no one tells you. South End rewards a very specific routine. If you're actually walking to dinner, hopping on the light rail, living outside your four walls, it's hard to beat. If your life is more home-based, more early mornings, more quiet nights, that math starts to feel a little bit different. And the South End is even a maybe for you. Don't guess. Reach out to the local Charlotte real estate team of choice. That's us. We help people pressure test neighborhoods like this every day. Call, text, or email us using the info in the description. Some neighborhoods don't need hype to stay relevant. They don't chase trends. They don't try to reinvent themselves every 5 years. They just quietly stay in demand while everything around them changes. Big trees, front porches that actually get used, streets where people know each other's dogs before they know last names. That's the energy here, and once you feel it, you'll realize why Dilworth keeps pulling people back in. What makes Dilworth different is not just how it looks, but how little it changes. You're right next to South End, but the pace drops immediately. One minute, you're near East Boulevard grabbing coffee. The next, you're walking laps around Freedom Park or cutting down Dilworth Road East, and it feels like the city slows down on purpose. That stability matters, especially for buyers who want walkability without chaos. Here's where the data matters. Dilworth is one of those neighborhoods where inventory stays tight no matter what the broader market does. There's a reason. You can't just add more Dilworth. Zoning, lot sizes, and historic character lock it in. Most of the year, active listings here hover in low single digits, which means turnover is rare and homes don't sit long when they do come up. In many years, fewer than 10% of homeowners here sell at all, which is one of the lowest turnover rates inside the loop. Urban planning research consistently shows that historic, land-constrained neighborhoods like this experience structural scarcity, not cyclical shortages, which is why demand doesn't disappear, it just waits. This is usually the moment where people realize something important. You're not paying for new, you're paying for certainty, for mornings that feel predictable, for evenings that are quiet without being boring, for being close to everything without feeling surrounded by it. So quick gut check here, and be honest. Would you rather live next to the action or next to the people who already know where they're staying? Drop that in the comments, because this is the fork in the road where most buyers split. Dilworth attracts people who are done experimenting, people who don't want to explain their neighborhood choice, and people who value walkability but value sleep too. And once someone gets in here, they rarely leave. That's not marketing, that's behavior. What's interesting is what happens after Dilworth, because once buyers realize they want character, personality, and neighborhood loyalty, some of them start craving something a little louder, a little messier, and a little more expressive, because the next neighborhood wears its personality on its sleeve. This neighborhood either clicks immediately or it just never will. There's almost no middle ground. People don't slowly warm up to this place. They either feel seen here or they feel exposed. And that reaction tells you everything you need to know. You notice it before you can explain it. The colors are louder, the conversations spill onto the sidewalks, the houses don't match, and no one's trying to make them. Walk Central Avenue and you pass someone headed to a show, someone walking a dog they rescued last year, someone who's lived on the same block forever, and someone who's moved here because it finally felt like permission to be themselves. That mix is not accidental. Living here feels social by default, not forced, just visible. You're known, you're noticed, your routines happen in public. Coffee turns into conversations, quick errands into plans. If anonymity feels safe to you, this might feel like too much. If anonymity feels boring, this place feels alive. Only after you understand that does the demand make sense. Plaza Midwood doesn't win on schools or lot size, it wins on identity. Research around amenity-dense, culture-forward neighborhoods show they consistently attract buyers who prioritize lifestyle alignment over square footage. In Charlotte specifically, neighborhoods like Plaza Midwood routinely see faster than average absorption rates despite smaller homes, because buyer demand is driven by experience, not scale. Price per square foot here often rivals more polished neighborhoods nearby, even though the housing stock is older and more varied, which signals lifestyle-driven pricing rather than traditional valuation logic. In most recent years, homes here are going under contract roughly 15 to 25% faster than the citywide average, even in slower markets. And that ecosystem matters. Central Avenue, the Common Market, Midwood Smokehouse on a weekend, the murals, the side streets that feel like they're their own little worlds. This neighborhood functions like a loop. Once people find their rhythm here, they don't treat it like a phase. They treat it like home. And there's a cost to that. Privacy is limited, parking tests patience. But for the right person, that friction isn't a downside. It's the point. It's texture, it's life happening where you can actually see it. Even though some people reach a fork, they still want history, still want establishment, still want neighbors who care. They just want it quieter, less expressive, more contained, and that's when the compass swings again towards a neighborhood where presence isn't loud, it's assumed. Everything here feels buffered. Wide streets that absorb noise, deep setbacks that create distance, houses that don't outperform for attention because they don't need to. You don't stumble into Myers Park by accident. You end up here because you're done reacting to the city and ready to control how it shows up in your life. This is where volatility goes to die. Not excitement, not ambition, chaos. Myers Park isn't designed to impress you. It's designed to protect you from surprises. And that difference matters more than people admit. The real flex here is insulation. From traffic, from rapid change, from whiplash markets. Myers Park sits inside some of the most constrained land in Charlotte, with zoning and lot sizes that quietly prevent disruption. On streets like Queens Road West and Myers Park Drive, annual turnover routinely sits in the low single digits, often under 8%, which is among the lowest in the city. Urban land use research consistently shows that legacy neighborhoods with large lots and restrictive zoning experience structural scarcity, not cyclical inventory swings, which is why supply here never really loosens. When homes do trade here, it's often quietly, deliberately, sometimes without even hitting the open market. Daily life reflects that control. Mornings are predictable, walks are calm, afternoons don't feel rushed, and nights shut down early and intentionally. You're close to the city, but rarely pulled into it. Freedom Park edges, tree tunnels, streets that feel more private than public. This is a neighborhood built for rhythm, not reaction. The trade-off is obvious. This isn't where spontaneity lives. You're not wandering into a random night out. Your social life is scheduled. Your routines are protected. And for some people, that feels boring. For others, it feels like relief. Myers Park attracts buyers who already know who they are. They're not testing lifestyles, they're locking them in. This is where Charlotte's confidence shows up without raising its voice. Now, some people never leave this lane. Others want the same sense of certainty, but with convenience layered on top. Let's be honest for a second. This is where a huge percentage of Charlotte buyers eventually land, whether they plan to or not. Not because it's exciting, not because it's edgy, because at some point, practicality wins the argument. South Park is the neighborhood people arrive at after they've done the mental math. Commute time, school options, daily errands, long-term resale, stress levels. This isn't a vibe-driven decision. It's a systems decision. And once that switch flips, South Park starts making a lot of sense very quickly. Instead of discovering the neighborhood slowly, most people understand South Park immediately. Everything's close, everything is intentional. Sharon Road, Fairview Road, the South Park Mall Loop, especially on a weekday afternoon when lunch traffic hits and school pickup overlaps. Offices, restaurants, grocery stores, gyms, medical, schools. You're not bouncing across the city to live your life. You're compressing it. And that compression is the value. Research consistently shows that neighborhoods with high convenience density and employment adjacency hold demand even when trend-driven areas cool. In practice, South Park tends to show a narrower price swing than more lifestyle-driven neighborhoods, with values often fluctuating several points less year over year during slower cycles. Homes here often tend to spend fewer days off market than people expecting for their price point, reinforcing South Park's reputation as a stability-first area rather than a momentum play. Living here feels efficient. Your days run cleaner, your routines don't fight each other, traffic patterns are familiar, errands stack instead of scatter. And for many buyers, being within 5 to 10 minutes of South Park Mall grocery stores, and major offices removes an entire layer of daily friction. And that calm starts to feel addictive, especially for professionals, families, and relocation buyers who want Charlotte to feel manageable instead of overwhelming. Here's the part that people don't always say out loud. Most buyers don't move to South Park because they're excited. They move here because it works, because life feels easier, because the margin for error is smaller. And for a lot of people, that's not settling, that's relief. But there's a cost. South Park doesn't give you edge, it doesn't give you grit. It won't surprise you on a random Tuesday night. The personality is subtle, controlled, polished. Some people crave that. Others eventually miss noise, texture, and unpredictability. That's where the shift happens. When efficiency stops being enough and people start wanting energy again, their compass swings toward a neighborhood that runs on art, sound, and motion instead of order. NODA runs hot, always has. You feel it before you understand it. Music leaking out of doors along North Davidson Street. People moving with intention, not urgency. A little loud, a little messy, fully alive. This is where Charlotte lets its guard down. During the day, NODA feels almost calm. Coffee shops humming near 36th Street, dog walkers cutting through side streets, artists loading gear. You hear train horns in the distance and smell espresso and hot pavement. It's creative without trying too hard. Then nights hit and the switch flips. Live music, packed patios, street corners buzzing. That same block feels completely different 12 hours later. That dual personality is the magic. This neighborhood attracts people who don't want their life pre-scripted. Renters who turn into buyers, buyers who don't mind trading square footage for soul. Research consistently shows that amenity-dense, culture-first neighborhoods like this hold demand even as buyers get more budget conscious, because people aren't just buying homes here. They're buying access, walkability, identity, and the numbers support that. Homes in NODA often move faster than nearby non-walkable areas, with days on market routinely trending well below the city average when priced under $700,000. That velocity is reinforced by steady rental demand tied to the light rail corridor and nightlife density, which keeps buyer interest sticky even during those slower market cycles. NODA continues to pull strong interest from first-time buyers and relocators in the sub 700,000 range, especially those prioritizing lifestyle over lot size. Living here feels expressive. Your nights last longer, your routines shift. You bump into people you know without planning it. You hear music before you see it. You don't always know how the night will end, and that's kind of the point. Quick pulse check, drop it in the comments. Which version of NODA you're more drawn to? Is it the daytime chill or is it the nighttime chaos? There's no wrong answer. It just says a lot about how you like to live. Now, here's the real talk. NODA isn't for everyone. Parking can be annoying. Noise, it's just part of the deal. Privacy, it's optional. But for the right person, those aren't flaws, they're features. This is a neighborhood that gives you permission to live louder, dress different, and care less about fitting into a mold. What usually happens next is interesting. Some people stay here forever. Others start craving the same walkability and character, but with a little more quiet, a little more polish, and just a touch more breathing room. Nobody moves to Elizabeth first, and that's exactly why the people who live here love it. This is the neighborhood Charlotte veterans quietly slide into after they've tried the louder options, after they've lived near the action, after they've realized they don't actually want their daily life to feel like an event. Elizabeth isn't chasing attention, it's correcting for it. Living here feels settled, in a good way. Streets that feel residential without being sleepy. Homes with character that don't feel fragile. You can walk, but you don't feel watched. You're close to things, but not swallowed by them. It's the kind of place where your routines finally stick. What makes Elizabeth different is how it converts people. Buyers come from NODA because they want quieter nights. From South End because they're tired of performing their lifestyle. From Uptown because they want space without losing access. Because demand here comes from multiple directions at once. Turnover tends to stay low, with homes often moving faster than expected for a close-in residential neighborhood. And the market behavior reflects that. Close-in neighborhoods like Elizabeth consistently outperform outer ring areas in retention and price stability, according to urban housing research, focused on proximity without intensity zones. See, buyers aren't choosing this area emotionally. They're choosing it pragmatically. Hyperlocal texture matters here. This stretch near 7th Street and the hospital corridor feels busier and more connected, while the pockets closer to Providence Road and nearby green spaces quiet down fast. And that range is the point. Elizabeth lets you choose your level of engagement without forcing an identity on you. Living here feels human. You can have a social life and a routine. You can know your neighbors without being in each other's business. You can be close to the city without needing to recover from it. Homes here often trade hands quickly when priced right, reinforcing how sticky this neighborhood becomes once people understand it. For a lot of people, this is where Charlotte finally clicks. But not everyone wants that middle ground. Some people don't want proximity anymore. They want immersion. They want the skyline in their windows and the city moving around them every single day. Let me say this up front. If you need quiet to recharge, this is probably not your place. Uptown doesn't ease you in. It drops you straight into the motion. Noise, people, movement, elevators running, sirens in the distance, conversations bouncing off of buildings. If that tightens your chest, that's your answer. And if it lights you up, keep listening. Living uptown means your home is part of the city's bloodstream. You can't escape the energy at the end of the day. You absorb it. Coffee downstairs, meetings a short walk, dinner plans decided last minute, because everything's right there. Space shrinks and time expands. That trade-off is constant. Here's the real test. If you like controlling your environment, Uptown will wear you out. You share walls, you share sidewalks, you share moments. But if you feed off of stimulation, if you like knowing something is always happening, Uptown locks you in like nothing else in Charlotte. This isn't about being trendy. It's about tolerance. Uptown has the highest concentration of condos and townhomes in the whole city. And that density consistently attracts single professionals and downsizers who prioritize time, access, and flexibility over square footage. Research on urban household formation shows demand in cores like Uptown doesn't vanish in slower markets. It narrows to buyers who intentionally choose density over distance. Tryon Street at 8 a.m. feels sharp and urgent. The 4th Ward in the evening slows just enough to breathe. Romare Bearden Park during a weekday lunch feels communal, almost like the city's living room. Uptown changes by the hour, and you either love that rhythm or it drains you. Most people don't stay uptown forever, and that's not a failure, it's just part of the cycle. Some people need the intensity for a season. Others realize they want their space back sooner. But the ones who choose Uptown on purpose, they're all in while they're here. A different question shows up, not what's happening tonight, but how much room do I want my life to have? When that shift happens, the map stretches outward again. More space, more control, fewer shared walls. Valentine is what happens when you're done sharing walls, done circling for parking, and done pretending that you're fine with cozy. This is the deep exhale neighborhood. More space, more order, more room for your life to sprawl out a little without feeling like you're doing something wrong. The vibe shift is immediate. Wider roads, bigger lots, newer builds, and communities that feel designed around routines that repeat. Morning drop-offs, gym, work, dinner, walk, reset. You're not stumbling into your night here, you're building it. And for a lot of people, especially families and move-up buyers, that feels like a relief, not boredom. Valentine's also one of the clearest examples of what your research has been screaming this whole time. A lot of Charlotte's growth keeps pulling south and outward because buyers are trading intensity for control. New construction pipelines, master planned pockets, and corporate gravity all keep this area on the short list. It's not just nice, it's functional. And if you've ever driven this area at 4:45 p.m., You know exactly what I mean when I say traffic is civilized until it suddenly isn't. That's the Ballantyne truth. Hyperlocal reality. Johnston Road is the spine. Ballantyne Village is the social anchor. The Bowl has turned into one of those spots where you can actually grab dinner and feel like you're not just eating next to a parking lot. Market-wise, Ballantyne tends to behave differently than the inner neighborhoods. Inventory is usually more available because there's more building happening and more turnover. In a lot of years, buyers here have 15 to 30% more new build options compared to those close-in neighborhoods where supply is basically locked in. In the $600,000 to $900,000 range specifically, Ballantyne often accounts for a disproportionately large share of available listings in South Charlotte, giving buyers more choice than almost anywhere else on this list. That creates a different kind of leverage. It's not always cheaper, but more choice, more negotiating room, more ability to match a floor plan to your actual life instead of forcing your life to fit the house. But here's the flip side. Ballantyne isn't pretending to be walkable in the same way that South End or Uptown is. You can walk inside your community, you can hit trails, you can get a coffee, but most of your life still runs on a car. If you're the type who needs sidewalks and spontaneity, this can feel a little too organized. If you're the type that wants predictable, safe, and scalable, Ballantyne feels like you finally stopped fighting the city and started using it. And we're going under the radar. The kind of neighborhood that people drive past 100 times and never notice until they realize that it might be the smartest play on the entire list. Let's clear the noise for a second. Lists like this usually train people to chase the loudest option, not the smartest one. And Shamrock Gardens quietly exposes that. This neighborhood doesn't try to impress you. It doesn't sell a vibe. It doesn't show up on merch or mugs or top 5 reels. What it does is give people who understand Charlotte an unfair advantage. Same access, less noise. Fewer ego premiums baked into the price. Here's your strategic reality. You're sitting just east of the inner core with Plaza Midwood and Elizabeth brushing your shoulder without paying their headline numbers. Independence Boulevard gets you moving fast. Eastway handles the everyday stuff. Central Avenue still belongs to your weekends. You're connected without being consumed. And the research backs why this works. Homes in Shamrock Gardens often trade roughly 15 to 25% below comparable properties just a few minutes west of Plaza Midwood, despite nearly identical access to the city. East Charlotte pockets like this have absorbed consistent spillover demand as inner core pricing tightens while still seeing slower, steadier appreciation instead of those whiplash swings. That combination tends to attract buyers who plan to stay, not flip, which is why turnover here stays lower than people expect. The homes tell the same story. Brick ranches, real yards, floor plans that don't fight you. These houses weren't designed for Instagram. They were designed for living. Renovations here add value because the bones already make sense. That's rare. Daytime feels practical, errands run clean, streets stay calm. At night, the neighborhood shuts down in a way that feels grounding, not boring. Porch lights, windows glowing, the kind of quiet that lets your brain unclench. And here's the difference, people who land here and people who don't. Shamrock Gardens attracts buyers who aren't chasing validation. They're chasing alignment. They want proximity without pressure, stability without stagnation, a neighborhood that works even when the market gets noisy. So if you're watching this thinking, why isn't this higher on everyone's list? That's the tell. Drop a comment and be honest. Would you rather live somewhere everyone recognizes or somewhere quiet that makes your life easier every single day? Because this neighborhood doesn't win by popularity, it wins by logic. And that's where the real Charlotte conversations actually start. There is no best neighborhood in Charlotte. The fastest way to get it wrong is guessing based on hype instead of how you actually live. That distinction changes everything. If you watch this all the way through, you probably felt it click somewhere. Maybe it was the energy of South End, the rhythm of Dilworth, the edge of Plaza, the calm of Ballantyne. or the quiet logic of Shamrock Gardens. That's the whole point. This city rewards people who choose with intention, not noise. We see it play out all the time, like the couple who were dead set on South End, toured for a weekend, then landed in a quieter pocket nearby and told us we sleep better, we save money, and we still walk everywhere. That kind of clarity doesn't come from waiting. It comes from understanding how Charlotte actually moves. Most people don't mess this up by moving too fast. They mess it up by overthinking, waiting too long, and picking a neighborhood that looks right on paper, but lives wrong day to day. If you're relocating, moving up, or even just pressure testing your options, it's exactly what our real estate team does every single day. We are the local Charlotte real estate team of choice, and we help buyers and sellers cut through the noise and land neighborhoods that fit their real life, not just the internet version. If you want a second set of eyes on your situation, call us, text us, or email us. All our info is right there in the description. Before you bounce, queue up our playlist. The videos in there break down how to choose the right side of Charlotte before you even look at a house. And that saves people months of second guessing. I appreciate you hanging out with me on this one, and I'll catch you on the next one.